Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Dr. Kaloy Tabunda from the Development Academy of the Philippines. Last October 29, the Permanent Court of Arbitration under the United Nations unanimously issued its award on jurisdiction and admissibility in connection with the arbitration case between the Philippines and China. In a statement, the tribunal said that the award concerns only whether the tribunal has jurisdiction to consider the Philippines' claims and whether such claims are admissible. The award does not decide any aspect of the merits of the parties' dispute. The tribunal held that both the Philippines and China are parties to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and bound by its provisions on settlement of disputes. What does this mean? What are its implications? Today, we are honored to have again as guest on our show, Mr. Chito Santoromana, a noted resource person on China. Chito is a veteran journalist who lived and worked in China for more than 3 decades. He was the former Beijing bureau chief for ABC News, the news division of the American Broadcasting Company. He has covered China as a producer and reporter for ABC News from 1989 until his retirement in 2010. Welcome to the show, Sir Chito. Thank you very much for coming here again.
Thank you, Kaloy, for inviting me.
For the uninitiated, what is the UNCLOS first and what is the ITLOS?
UNCLOS is the shorthand for the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea.
Okay.
It is considered to be like the constitution for the legal order of the oceans. It has to do with oceans, with waters, not with land. Okay, and it does not deal with sovereignty, but it deals with the rights and obligations of coastal states and the different states, littoral, non-littoral states, regarding the waters. ITLOS is the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea. If there are disputes regarding the interpretation and the application of the law,
this is the court. This is the court.
This is the court. The International Tribunal is the court. Now, the ITLOS, which is actually based in Hamburg, Germany, set up a special arbitral tribunal to hear our arbitration case. And they registered it at The Hague, because there is the Permanent Court of Arbitration.
Okay.
So, you have the Constitution of the Sea, UNCLOS, and the court dealing with disputes regarding the application of UNCLOS in ITLOS.
Okay, so the Philippines filed its case 2013,
2013, right? January.
And
2013.
after 2 years, the ITLOS has rendered its decision that it has jurisdiction over the case filed by the Philippines. Right?
That's right. Okay. You see, the Chinese said they will not participate, and they reject the process. But before the deadline for submission of all, for the deadline for all submissions, the Chinese did not submit to the tribunal. Instead, they issued it to the public in a position paper, but they questioned the jurisdiction of the tribunal, and they said the tribunal has no jurisdiction. So the tribunal took this as the legal plea of the Chinese and considered it, and now they have dismissed it and said, we will proceed. We have jurisdiction on 7 points. The Philippines submitted 15 points. 7 points, they will definitely consider, they will go to the merits. The other 8, at least 7 of them, including the submission on the 9-dash line, they said they cannot tell if they have jurisdiction or not, but it does not have a preliminary character. They will decide after they hear the merits. And on the 15th, because it's a general proposition, we said that China should desist from any unlawful activities. We were told, the Philippines was told, to specify and to narrow this claim. But they accepted all. They did not dismiss
the 15. Okay. I just want to make a clarification. So China did not participate in the proceedings, but the statement they released to the public was the one considered by the ITLOS. Am I right?
Yes. The arbitral tribunal under ITLOS, what they did was they took not only the public position paper, there's another book written by a Chinese scholar and a German law professor, which basically speaks on China's behalf. So they took those two, and then they took all the statements by the Chinese Foreign Ministry and the government statements relative to the case, and these are now, in other words, they wanted to give China all the chances.
Okay.
And so they're considering all the public documents in the public domain that is relevant to the case. And the Philippines had to answer, even though, so China was like the elephant in the room.
Yes, yes. It's not there.
Not there, but basically you're trying to rebut their arguments. And we won. Because if we had lost, basically what the Chinese wanted was to set up this hurdle, a procedural hurdle on jurisdiction. And if they won, basically we're back to zero. And then what do we do next? The Chinese wanted to force us to go back to bilateral and not through the court. But now the court has taken it as under its jurisdiction, and the others to be considered whether it's under its jurisdiction. But they basically are going to continue now to a discussion on the merits, and they even announced that they expect to have a final decision next year.
I read an article several days ago which said that perhaps the reason why the ITLOS accepted the jurisdiction was because it's the ITLOS reaction to the current, bullying of China. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it is very clear if you read the summary of the decision that a concern of the judges, who are all luminaries in international law,
they're supposed to be
law of the
neutral.
sea, yes, and they come from an African country, a European country. Basically, their concern is to make sure that UNCLOS, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, is upheld.
Okay.
And that international law is upheld. So in a sense, yes, they basically says we have to proceed and judge this according to international law, not according to the law of might.
Okay. So what did we win again in the first round?
We won we won the issue of jurisdiction.
Okay.
And jurisdiction over 7 issues. These 7, among them, are really the questions of maritime entitlements. In other words, for example, Scarborough. Is it a rock or an island?
Okay.
And they will determine that, because if it's a rock, meaning people cannot live on it,
Yes.
but it's exposed at high tide and at low tide, it is only entitled to 12 miles.
Okay.
If it's an island, entitled to 200 miles, which is a bearing, because it's very close to the Philippines. And if we win that, we win the case over Scarborough, but it does not solve the question of who owns Scarborough, but at least beyond the 12 miles, whoever owns it, let's say China owns it, beyond the 12 miles would be part of our exclusive economic zone. The same with Mischief Reef, Ayungin Shoal. These are what we call low tide elevations. And in this case, if it sinks at high tide and it only surfaces at low tide, it is considered a submerged reef, half submerged. And it is not entitled to anything. No territorial sea, no EEZ or continental shelf, but only a 500-meter safety zone. But these are the places, for example, Mischief Reef and Subi Reef, where the U.S. ship passed through. The Chinese have expanded this into artificial islands. So it's very important. And then the other areas where the Chinese built artificial.
Okay, so these are artificial islands.
Yes.
Will they have a bearing on the final decision?
Yes, because precisely one of the issues that will be considered on the merit stage is whether the islands that the Chinese built or turned into artificial islands, like Fiery Cross Reef, just the past year or two, Fiery Cross Reef, Quarteron Reef, that they are only rocks, that they're not islands, and therefore only 12 miles. They cannot be used for 200 miles. If we win all those, it narrows the dispute between us and China.
Thank you very much, Sir Chite. We will continue this discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we're back. The main bone of contention of China is the 9-dash line. What is the 9-dash line?
Okay, the 9-dash line is a line that was drawn on the map, made of 9 dashes, but the problem is...
It's imaginary.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, it's on the Chinese map. But the question is, what is it based on?
Okay.
Because it exceeds what is allowed under UNCLOS.
The 200
The 200 mile.
Okay.
And the Chinese have not explained it carefully. Is it a boundary or is it just a reference point of their territorial claim?
Yes, yes.
The problem is, this is exactly why we submitted this for arbitration. Now, the tribunal has decided, they haven't decided that it's already covered by their jurisdiction. They said,
the 9-dash line, not yet.
it is part of the 7 and the 8 that they will consider in the merit stage. But they said they are willing to discuss it and hear the merits before they make a decision on whether they have jurisdiction. This is the heart of our case, because we want the 9-dash line invalidated. The fact that it has not been dismissed is a victory for us, but it's not over yet. We now had to prove our case that it has no basis in international law and to convince the arbitral tribunal. And I think the Chinese, starting now with their media, they're trying to defend their historical rights. Not exactly the 9-dash line, but the basis, the legal basis of it, which is historical rights versus rights under UNCLOS. This is really the issue. Where do you get the source of your maritime entitlements? From UNCLOS alone? The Chinese claim from historical rights. So this is the critical question and the critical stage we will cover as we proceed with this case.
So within the 9-dash line are also the territorial claims of the other countries, the 3 other countries?
Well, it includes practically the whole of the South China Sea, almost 80%, 70 to 80%, and it includes all the maritime features, so all the islands, reefs, and shoals. And the problem is, it intersects with the EEZs of different countries around the South China Sea.
Okay. So in summary, the Philippines won the first round in terms of the ITLOS saying that it has jurisdiction over the case. But as the merits...
We won the first round, but the battle is not over. We won an initial battle, but the war is still in front of us.
Okay. Okay, we will continue with this later. Thank you very much, Mr. Chito, again.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Nea.